everybody, welcome once again to Edge of Reality TV. I'm Willie Hassel. This, of course, is the lovely Lynn Nicholson.
Good evening, Willie. How
And
are
how
you
you
doing?
doing?
I asked you first.
Well, okay then. I'm good. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Anything new in your end of the world? Or
A new guest.
a new guest?
Yes.
He is a new guest.
Yes.
have
Someone
never-
we haven't interviewed before.
Yeah, we have never had this gentleman on before.
Yes.
So I'm kind of taking that means shut up and introduce the guest.
Yeah.
Is that what you?
You're so harsh.
I know. Hey, Christopher Brown was born in Portland, Maine, and having lived for many years in an extremely haunted house, sparked his love and interest for the paranormal. After investigating an old seminary in Maine, he discovered his ability as a psychic medium. Chris is now an independent spiritualist minister, as well as a Reiki master and teacher. From platform gallery readings to personal one-on-one readings, Christopher attends fairs across the country, giving meaningful messages from the spirit world and sharing his knowledge of the paranormal. He is also working on a paranormal. He's also working as a paranormal consultant for paranormal teams to help with validation. He's currently working on a book and working towards a film web series with Toby Hartford called Soul Searching. Please welcome to the show, Christopher J. Brown.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Glad
for
to
coming,
have you,
Chris.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, my goodness, you're really busy. You've got all these projects.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay busy.
And you're also a guitarist in a band.
Yep, that's right. I do.
How do you find time for all that?
I don't. I don't know. I really don't. I'm on autopilot sometimes, it feels like. But it's, you find time for the things you're passionate about, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, but there's only 24 hours in a day.
I know. I always say that
Yeah.
a lot. There's not enough hours in the day.
You can always hold some over to the next day, though.
Yeah, that's right. Roll over hours.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
That's right.
Well, we kind of structured today's show so that the first half we'd get to know you a little bit better and what some of your pet interests are and your hobbies. And in the second half, we were hoping maybe you could do a couple of readings for us.
Absolutely. I would love
Wonderful.
Okay, we have a wonderful in-house studio audience. So
We do.
We're gonna, after the bottom of the hour, we're going to look for some volunteers to come up and get a quick reading.
We have some select candidates for you.
to. It sounds good. I'll do my best.
So I was very intrigued by your bio. Excuse me, and I want to know more about that extremely haunted house you lived in.
Yeah, this was it was a duplex in Portland, Maine, and
Duplex.
so there was one family that lived next to us, and then we lived on the other side. And I was I was a teenager, just coming up, maybe 13 until about 18. I lived there, but this place had everything you could think of. There was shadow figures, there was things flying off the shelves in the middle of the night that you couldn't explain. I kept thinking that there would be a TV show that was on downstairs, and sure enough, there'd be nobody down there. You'd think you'd hear it talking. I remember one time, very specifically, a friend of mine, I was outside smoking a cigarette, and my friend came down. It was 3 stories. So we lived on the third floor, and he came down, and he was right about the second floor. He said he saw what he thought was me standing there, and he was like, hey, move. And he just saw it dart down and go down the stairs, and sure enough, there was nobody there. And he saw me outside and scared the daylights out of him. So things like that would happen. I would have friends that would come over that wouldn't believe in hauntings at all. And they'd be like, I don't know what it is about your house, but I don't like it. I don't want to be here. And they wouldn't come back. My brother, as a matter of fact, he got really scared. There was one time I was in my room. I was adjacent from his. And I heard him come upstairs. I heard him go into his room. I heard 2 bangs. And then he came into my room shaking like a leaf. Like he was just so scared. He kept saying, there's a ghost in my room. There's a ghost in my room. And when I finally asked him what had happened, he was rearranging his room. So he went to go put his bed back together. And when he bent over, he heard someone go, hey, right behind him. And so he thought it was me messing with him. And so he turned around and he was looking around, and all of a sudden he heard it again. And that's when he ran into my room and was screaming. Long story short, 2 weeks later, he moved out.
You're kidding.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. He moved out of the house and he never came back.
Oh my gosh. Well, what age was he at that time?
I would say he's older than me, so he was about 20.
Oh my gosh.
And he still to this day doesn't like to talk about it, and he'll be like, yeah, that house was messed up, and I don't like it.
Was this in downtown Portland? Or?
No, it was right near a place called Cheverus High School. So it was kind of, it wasn't suburban, but it wasn't not suburban, I guess is the best way I could describe it. But it wasn't in town by any chance.
So was it like housing for an old mill building for mill workers, or what was the story with the house, the
So-
history of it?
Honestly, I feel like it was one of the neighbors that was there because this was a gentleman that had done time, or not done time, but he had spent a lot of time overseas in war and things like that. So he'd seen a lot of things. He didn't like children. I know that he had passed away in that home. So I feel like his spirit was definitely kind of messing with us and hanging around.
yeah.
And just like I said, he didn't care for children. He was very kind of just a dark kind of guy. But I think his spirit was haunting it.
So
for
you
sure.
do think that he occupied that house or next door, or the duplex, the other side of the house, you're saying?
I think he accompanied both sides. I think he could come and go as he pleased.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
okay.
Because to him, it was his house.
Yeah.
Before it was made into a duplex, I feel like it was one bigger home.
So
Oh,
he
that-
probably lived there when it was all one.
Correct.
Right.
And so he's probably thinking like, why are these kids in my house? I don't like kids to begin with. You know, get out.
Just hearing disembodied voices are kind of hard to take when you're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very frightening.
Absolutely.
So at that point, when did your psychic awakening take place? Were you starting to feel things then, other than seeing, shadow people and weird stuff like that? What about like nightmares? Do you think that played a part in it, in like your psychic awareness, or did you have nightmares in that house?
I definitely had nightmares as a kid. And in that house, as a matter of fact, I have a reoccurring dream about that house.
What is it?
It's odd. It's every time it's the same house, but it's a different scenario. And I can never figure it out. And every time I think I'm free of it, a month later, and I'll dream of being in that house. But it always brings me back there. It's very strange. But to answer your question, when I was in the house and I lived there, I always said that I felt energy. I could say that, I feel like when I know where there's a ghost in the room, just because I felt the energy of that. But the real awakening happened when I was at the seminary and kind of.
Yeah, well, let's get into that. What happened there? What were you doing there? Were you doing an investigation
I
or
was.
just visiting? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and about what age bracket were you then?
I was 32, 33-ish, so
Okay.
it wasn't that long ago.
And up to that point, you really didn't have any sensitivities,
Like I said, I
just being aware.
Yeah, just being aware that they were of energy, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I had no word for it. I had no way of knowing what exactly it was, because my mom would joke and say, oh, I'm psychic. I know when your Aunt Sandra's going to call. And sure enough, my aunt would call and she'd be like, yep, I knew it, And so, but like, I didn't know what a medium was. I didn't know what psychics were. So that was all foreign language to me. So when I actually started to have more validation of this, it got really kind of complicated. And so I did a lot of research into it.
Didn't that kind of freak you out then if you didn't know about psychics? And that would have upset me.
It was very creepy.
I mean, I would have come
What's
unglued.
going on here?
I thought I was losing my mind. I really did,
I bet
because
you did.
and when I was a kid too, I would hear kind of what I felt like was in my mind's eye, different voices and different things like that. But
Well,
they never
sure,
made
everybody,
sense.
if they're psychic, they get definite words in their head. So
Mhm.
it does, if you weren't aware of it, you would think you're crazy.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense usually most of the time, and it would be like multiple people talking at once. And I feel like it was
Really?
just I feel like it was just the spirit world being like, I know you can hear me. I'm trying to pass this message on, but you're not getting it.
And they were having conversations. Yeah, you just weren't aware at the time.
Right.
Okay, so what happened at the seminary?
So at the seminary, I was with a good friend of mine, and we were just kind of walking around, and I could definitely feel that same feeling as when I was a kid, and I was like, this is familiar. I know this feeling. So I was like, maybe this place truly is haunted. And we'd heard that it was haunted, but we went into the attic, and I started getting the impression of a young child spirit wanting to play games with me. And I was like, oh, he wants to play hide and seek. And I was like, no, this can't be. It must be my imagination. Like it couldn't be what I think it is. Sure enough, I went home and I YouTubed the same place. And there was a psychic medium that went on the team, and she went to the same spot that I did and was like, there's a young child spirit here and he's playing games. And my jaw dropped. And I was like, that's what I was feeling.
This stuff is real.
Yeah, and I was like, there's got to be something to this. So I just started researching, what does it mean to be a medium? What does it mean to be psychic? What are ways that you can develop it? What are ways that you can tune into it? And I just have not stopped. I just went head first, and I found my true passion.
And
Yeah.
we can mention it. There's the Parsonsfield Seminary.
Yes, the Parsonsfield
Oh,
Seminary, right in
Maine.
Parsonsfield, Maine.
In Parsonsfield, Maine. Whereabouts is that? South of Portland?
It's closer near New Hampshire, I believe. But it's kind of it would be southwest in Maine.
Okay, so
if I
it's
get my
not.
bearing right.
It's not really near the ocean, is it?
No.
Um, Why do you suppose that there was a child up there? I mean, it was a seminary where men would go to practice religion, learn about religion. So why do you suppose there was a child in the attic?
Well, it was a boys and girls school.
Oh,
Yeah.
that does make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there would be there was a girl's side and a boy's side. And it was actually interesting when I looked out the window one time. It was almost like I could get a psychic impression of the past, and
Yeah.
I could see all the girls looking out the windows trying to talk to the boys. And when I asked the caretaker, she said, "Yeah, that's exactly what they would do. They would all poke out the windows and they try to talk to the boys, so the headmaster."
Yeah, they were supposed to be kept separate.
That's
So,
right. Yeah. So they
there
wouldn't get in
was-
trouble. They would lean out the windows and they would try to talk to each other that way.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, in our investigations, what we have both found to be true is spirits seem to gravitate either to the basement area or to the attic.
Hmm.
So why do you suppose that child was in the attic?
There's also this talk of this darker energy that's in Parsonsfield. There's this thought that this darker energy is kind of keeping some of the kids there. I've run into this energy. It's definitely ominous. It's definitely kind of like a heavy feeling. But that's the theory
Very
as to why they could be up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you gone back there since you became aware?
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried to free that child?
I have. I've tried to go in and just kind of release any sort of negativity. I've gone in and tried to bless that child and make sure that like everything is okay, that they can go into the light. I feel like I was able to do that. I feel like there was some good positivity that came from that.
Yeah.
So
I think you'd never really know. Sometimes you get the sense of relief that they're going. And I know some psychics can see the child moving to the light. But I've worked with Val, and she claims that she has passed someone over, but people will report they're back. So I guess the spirit actually has their own volition that they can come back if they want to.
right.
But being a child, I should think she'd want to seek a place where she's more comfortable and, not held prisoner by a negative entity.
Well, and I think also they stay there for comfort as well. The energy might be there
Yeah.
in tandem with them, but I feel like there's a comfort in there that when they're there. So I don't think it's necessarily
Not all black and white.
yeah, exactly. There's some gray areas
So
there.
it is a place that they're used to and
Yes.
and comfortable with, even though there is something to kind of steer clear of.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like don't go away from or stay away from this certain person, but you can still stay in the location.
Yeah.
Did you find anything else there? Like any priests or nuns? With nuns, right? Or priests? Priests.
I think it would be priests. Yeah.
Okay. So were any of them hanging around?
I didn't really pick up on a lot of that. I formed this kind of bond with this younger child spirit for whatever reason. It was just kind of
Yeah.
like he wanted to communicate with me. I was there one time, and another investigator, actually Toby Hartford, the one I'm shooting Soul Searching with, he was there with me, and he said, "Can you communicate with the spirits and ask them to show you this certain room that I was getting a lot of evidence in?" And I felt the young child there, and I was like, "Can you show me?" And I asked him very politely, "Can you show me the room?" And he led me right to it, and I was like, "That's so cool," because Toby was like, "Yep, that's the room. This is the one."
And what was happening there?
So
was Toby
Toby
doing?
actually was able to. There was 4 K2s that were on either side, and he was actually able to have him follow them around the K2s, and kind of like, can you follow me around? Can you light them up? And he was able to do that. I wasn't there for that, but that was the story that I was told.
Wow.
But he walked me right to the room that happened.
That's
So
pretty cool.
Yeah.
when you were a kid, did you feel outcast? Did you feel that you didn't fit in?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely had. I wasn't like the popular kid. I was definitely kind of the weird one that kind of kept to himself and kind of made friends with my imagination. Really,
You stuck your nose in a book all the time.
I
I
did.
know
Yeah,
that feeling.
yeah. It's not a bad place to be though.
So where did you go from there in your psychic education, in getting involved with learning how to attune to spirit?
So crazy enough, it was YouTube.
Really?
Oddly enough, YouTube is a treasure trove of knowledge when it comes to certain things. I mean, not all of it is good. I treasured what was valid and I discarded what was not. But there was a lot of things that kind of helped you kind of tune into it, and kind of meditations that would be really useful to kind of tuning yourself in, and then doing the work. It started off on Facebook groups. Somebody would post a picture of somebody, and I would kind of type a paragraph of the impression that I got. And so it started that way. And I remember when I first did my first in-person reading, I think I almost had a heart attack. I was just so scared. I was so nervous because I was hoping that it would go well, and I was hoping that it would be valid. And it was. I was able to bring through a friend's grandmother who had passed from ALS.
Wow.
And so it was really good healing and really good evidence from her. So I just kept going with it. I just kept reading people, and it was just, like I said, I haven't stopped. So
And now you're doing group readings and
yeah,
room,
yeah.
rooms full of
And
people.
for rooms full of people, yeah, like at the USS Salem, that was a blast.
That was fun.
Mhm.
So I've done that before too, but typically you can read a lot about a person from a photograph.
Mm.
I had once seen someone in a movie years and years ago, and then I saw a new movie that he was in, and in between the two movies, I knew that he had been seriously involved in drugs and that he was very on the demonic side. And I wound up doing some research and found out that to be true.
Mm.
But it was just from snapshots. One was a movie and the other was like a snapshot from another movie, a more recent snapshot.
Mhm.
So we had done that once with Ron Kolick, didn't we? Yeah.
Didn't work out too well with me.
Well, looking at photographs and then trying to determine what these people's issues were.
Oh, yep.
Very interesting. I got a few hits.
Yeah.
So how did you learn to trust what you were getting rather than questioning it?
That is a great question. And it really became, it was quieting your mind and just really trusting that the information coming through is something that they're going to understand, and through the feeling of it as well, because like it's not just a trust; it's like you feel when
There's an
and-
emotional
yeah,
element to it.
there's an emotional element to it. There's obviously a spiritual connection to it, but you get this kind of feeling in your solar plexus, and then you get these impressions that start coming in, and most of the time, as long as you just kind of deliver what you're getting, the spirit world knows what needs to be said, and the spirit world knows what you need to hear. So I kind of trusted it that way.
Yeah.
But I trusted the feeling of it more than anything, if that makes sense.
Then what was the nature of the meditations? What did you wind up doing? Any kind of mantras? 'Cause meditations can mean a lot of different things to different people. So what was your approach?
My approach, there was one in particular that really helped me a lot, and it was almost like row your boat.
Yeah.
When one person starts and then another person starts and another person starts. This was kind of how the meditation worked. So there was, in the audio, you could hear something here, you could hear something here, and you could hear something in the middle, if that makes sense. And so there was one voice here, there was one voice there, there was one voice here. So it was like 5 or 6 going all at once. And the way you train yourself is to tune into one voice at a time and just see what you're getting from that. If that makes sense. Because it's like, that's how the spirit world comes in. Sometimes you have 5, 6 people coming in all at once, and to listen to one voice in particular can definitely help you kind of like slow things down and kind of let one person come through at a time.
So you're not talking about actual audio voice. You are.
Yeah,
You're
audio.
listening to a tape.
Yeah. And right on YouTube, you can find it.
Well,
and other things for
kinda-
quieting your mind as well. But
Kind of like being in a busy restaurant or something. and
Exactly.
trying to tune into one.
Tuning into one
voice.
conversation.
precisely, yeah. And that's helped me a lot, because I mean, a lot of the times, when I said when I was a little kid, a lot of times you hear a lot of voices coming in all at once, and this helped me kind of quiet that a little bit and help me kind of narrow it down to one. And now I have a discipline where, like, when I'm tuned in, I'll connect with the spirit world, and when I'm not, I'd shut down and kind of just live my life.
Well, that was another thing. I was wondering, how is it that you manage to control this? Because you can't be on all the time. You've got to
No.
have some peace,
Absolutely.
So how is it that you tune it out? Just your focus, your mental focus?
So Magic Eyes. Remember Magic Eyes? Those old kind of things where you'd hold your
Yeah.
face up to them and you'd slowly move away, and it would be like a 3D pop-up image. Do you
Oh.
remember those?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I attribute it to. Is that sort of a focus? You can focus in, and then when you got it, and then when you want to not focus, you just kind of readjust and
Just shake it off.
yeah,
and
shake it
just-
off and back to being you. And then sometimes too, I'll splash water on my face. Like after a long day of readings, I'll splash water on my face to kind of clear the energy and ground myself a little bit.
I would imagine that's exhausting though if you do a day of readings. Don't you
can
find
be.
it drains you?
Absolutely, yeah. After gallery readings, after a full day of readings, I'm wiped. Yeah.
What do you do to get your energy back?
Some chocolate is a great way to.
Chocolate.
Chocolate is a great way to ground
That's
yourself.
a great way to do anything.
Yeah, it's a great way for anything, right? Eat some chocolate. Honestly, I do the things that I'm passionate about. I play my guitar. I hang out with family. We have a big garden, so I like to hang out in the garden with bare feet.
Yep.
And so just kind of getting that kind of grounding and getting that kind of fresh air and just hanging out with the family and doing my hobbies that I love to do. It helps me kind of shut down and just be me again.
Okay, how about entities that try to come through that might not have been in corporal form? So something like maybe even ETs. Do you feel that you've connected with ETs?
I don't honestly. Yeah, I can't say that I have. I'm not saying that it's not possible or that that I I could potentially do it, but
Yeah.
I generally focus on people who've passed that you know and that you love and that you've been connected to. That's my major focus.
Don't you find that sometimes something else wants a voice to speak to you to relate information? Like, what about elementals, tree spirits, or nature spirits, or fairies or gnomes? That sort of thing.
I haven't personally experienced that. Like I said, I believe it to be plausible. I believe it to be possible, and I
Yeah.
definitely think that that's an avenue that people can go down.
But you don't ever feel them nagging at you, wanting to communicate.
No,
No?
honestly, no.
Just real people.
Just real people, yeah.
What about Bigfoot?
What about Bigfoot? Yeah,
Yeah.
gone squatching, right?
Yeah, does Bigfoot talk to you?
No, Bigfoot does not talk to me.
Have you ever run into one?
No, I have not. No. I'm always fascinated. And again, I find Bigfoot very plausible, but I've never experienced it myself, so I can't say.
Yeah, you got to speak to Dave McCullough. He'll fill you in.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got some amazing stories.
That's awesome.
So you also work at Fort Knox, so you're a tour guide there.
So
Right, or
I'm
you
the-
did, or
well, no. So I'm a part of a team called 207 Paranormal.
right.
And we do a lot of ghost hunts there. We do ghost camp. We do ghost nights there. We do a psychic fair. I'm also the psychic medium of Fort Knox. So that's pretty cool. So they kind of appointed me to that. And we do a gallery reading for everybody before the night's investigation. And it's really, really fun. We have another one coming up on August 27th.
That's,
so
very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Is that going to be like a sleepover type thing where you stay outside?
Not this time. This time will be just a ghost hunt. So that'll be from, I believe, 8 to 12. There'll be a psychic
Okay.
fair that's going on before then, during the day.
And what does that consist of, the psychic fair? Is it just vendors?
Yep, vendors,
Okay.
different paranormal vendors, so people can come on, check them out, and just kind
Yeah.
of see what their experiences are and talk to them.
And they can find out about that on your Facebook page?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, good. And what might that be? Just Google your name.
No, so if you look up Psychic Medium Christopher or Facebook.com/Psychic Medium Christopher, you can find me.
Okay. But, so you don't work like a full-time job as a tour guide there?
No.
Oh, so it's just an adjunct sort of thing?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when they're doing events there, when they're kind of doing ghost hunts, I go and I help out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
This one on the 27th is a public ghost hunt.
Absolutely, yep, anybody can go.
And they do private ones too, right?
Yes, that's right, yep.
okay. So your team, your 207 Paranormal,
Mhm.
so you do investigations.
Mhm.
Because of your talent, does that facilitate you connecting with the ghosts there or not?
At Fort Knox?
Well,
Or just in general
just in
investigations?
general, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps with certain things because there's been times where they've gone into certain locations and they know the history or they know the kind of the haunted history behind it. And they've kind of had me come in just to see for validation's sake if I can pick up
Yeah.
on stuff. And there was one time in particular where there was somebody that it was near Fort Knox, but it was the bridge near Fort Knox. But
Oh yeah,
there was people that had jumped, and I was able to connect with that.
that
And
great
that was
big
kind of
suspension thing.
yeah. And so that we were connect with that, and so that was kind of like good validation from them to know that that we are picking up on entities that are not entities, but people that have passed through that way.
I would imagine, like, if you go into a place that you don't really know, is it haunted? And you could kind of go in and say, yes, it definitely is.
Right.
Or something like that. That's
Mhm.
what we use Lynn for sometimes.
So you do coach other paranormal teams. So is it showing them how to go with their intuition to get the validation and to go with it? I mean, how is it you coach them?
So that's exactly right. As I go in there and I have them trust their
Okay.
intuition, trust their instincts, and kind of because I truly feel like we all have this ability. You know what I mean? It's not for certain people. Everybody has it's our God-given right. So I kind of teach people to kind of follow their intuition and kind of follow the energy that they're picking up on and the information that's coming through to them, and then validating that through the kind of the K2s and the EVPs and things like that. So that's kind of how I coach people along. Is just really coach them to trust what they're getting and trust what they're feeling.
What fascinates me is sometimes you'll take a group into a location without them knowing what's going on, and everybody starts getting, several people may get different pieces of the same puzzle, and you may not know the whole story. One might get a name, another one might get a date, another one might get the event itself that happened, and then you put it all together. So what fascinates me is how it is that people filter the information to get different pieces of the information that is in the atmosphere, that's left hanging. That I think that's I love doing that.
Yes,
I
it's
find
fascinating.
it fascinating.
Yeah.
We do have about 3 minutes to the bottom of the hour.
Okay, let me see what else I wanted to ask him. I had a couple of other things here.
Quickly.
Um, well, I don't know how long this the interrogation is going to go on, but I did want to ask you about the soul searching series.
Yes.
So, how are you? What's the focus of that?
The focus on that is to go into a location and kind of pick up psychically on the energy that's there, just like what we were talking about, and and getting validation towards the end of that, and then doing kind of our own paranormal investigating, and then doing readings while I'm there. Doing readings for either the person who owns the building or just people that are in the building during the investigation.
So it would be something that would be set up. You know where you're going, and you've been invited there, and you're trying to solve the mystery of what goes on there, and to get evidence.
Yeah, and then get validation at the end of it to say, like, this is what you picked up on, this is what maybe you didn't pick up on, and kind of, like you said, putting the puzzle pieces
Yeah.
together and kind of figuring out what's going on at the location.
Well, I
It's
bet
been really fun.
you won't come up with, we got this and this, but nah, it's not haunted.
Yeah,
Nothing
nothing's
going
going
Like
on.
one
at
of the
all, yeah.
shows we know.
Yeah,
But no, I think that's wonderful because I think you'll probably be more honest about it,
I try to
about
be.
the results. And yeah,
Absolutely.
this is what's happening.
Mhm.
You may not want to hear it, but this is what we're getting.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just like the true accounts of what went down and kind of what we experienced there.
So do you get to do the research yourself to make sure that the facts are?
No,
There?
so I have, so Toby does that.
Does he?
Yeah, he'll actually tell me afterwards what I picked up on, what I didn't, because he'll know everything that's going into it.
fabulous.
And I'm going in there blind, so.
Yeah.
And then he'll tell me afterwards, like, oh yeah, that female that you picked up on, that's that's this and that's that, or that name that you said, like that makes sense to this. And
So is it like a half an hour segment where you leave time enough to like do a reveal and get the confirmation at the end of the show?
it's about anywhere from a half an hour to 45-minute show. So it varies from
Oh,
episode to
wow.
episode. But yeah, the first one was at the Conjuring House.
Oh.
Then we were, I'm trying to think of where we were. There's only 4 episodes, I should know. But I know we went to Wilson Castle, Parsonsfield Seminary, and we also went to Swan Island.
Great.
That's right in Richmond, Maine.
And does Toby do some filming while you're there?
He does the filming for the show, yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay, well, it's just about the bottom of the hour. So we're going to have to take a short break. And we're going to go into our studio audience here and look for some volunteers to get a reading from
Okay.
Chris. And so we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Welcome back to Edge of Reality TV. I'm Willie Hassel along with Lynn Nickerson. And our guest this month is Christopher Brown. And it's great to have you on the show, Chris.
Thank you.
And we
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you
Yeah.
coming. And we have taken a volunteer from our studio audience. This is Stacia, and hopefully Chris is going to be able to do a little quick reading, and
Hello.
we'll just leave it to you, Chris.
All right. So before every reading I do, I just want to thank your spirit guides for connecting with mine. And I want to thank everybody in the spirit world for the messages of love that they have for you. Because that's what it's all about. It's all about the love. It's all about that connection. Just going to take a deep breath and we'll get started, okay? All right. So as soon as I kind of shift my awareness over into the spirit world, I feel a woman's presence stepping forward for you. Okay, she very much watches over you every single day. She's telling me that she's very much like a spirit guide for you, but I feel like she's connected to you on mom's side of the family. I do feel like she's above you in age. I also feel like she's talking about a cancer connection with her, but she's kind of saying that there was times where she would kind of come in and out of it. She would get better and then she would get worse, and then she would start to kind of get better and then she'd get worse again. Does that make any sense?
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat. Okay. She's also kind of feeling like she was very kind of mother henish, if that makes sense. So she wanted everything to be kind of taken care of and everything to kind of be where it needed to be. Everything had a place and a place for everything, kind of a deal. She also feels kind of old-fashioned to me. So she's somebody that was kind of. But again, too, she's got a great personality. She's a little bit of Spitfire when I connect with her as well. She's kind of spunky, kind of fiery, and I feel like she was like that until the day she passes. Does that make sense? Because she's kind of showing me that she didn't have any sort of kind of fear of passing. She knew where she was going to go. She knew that she was going to be okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so she wants you to know that she's not scared and that she wasn't. That's validation that she's not scared. I feel like she's saying that she wasn't alone when she passed, so there was a lot of people that were around her. Does that make sense? Okay, because she's showing me a lot of people around her, a lot of loved ones, a lot of people saying that it's okay to pass, it's okay to go, just giving her that encouragement, right? Let's see here. She must have had very blue eyes because she's showing me blue eyes. Does that make sense for her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because she's showing me her like bright blue eyes. And usually my symbol for that is Frank Sinatra, old blue eyes. So she's showing me Frank Sinatra, and she's like, "That's what my eyes were too." I feel like she's connected to mom's side of the family. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like this could be her mother or maybe above her. So your grandmother.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Could be. All right, because I feel like she's kind of saying that that's the connection she has for you. She's also talking about, too, are you named after somebody? Or is the name Stacia kind of followed along in your family? Does that make any sense?
No.
Because she's talking about a name that kind of continues along in the family. You know what she could be talking about?
My middle name,
Your middle name? So you're named after somebody
the family.
in the family? Okay, perfect. So that's validation for you to know that that's just her. And just letting you know that. Let's see. Now, does it make sense for her to have lived by the coast at all? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, because she's showing me being by water, and she's being by the coast, and she actually loved it. She said that was kind of like her safe place, was being there. She also kind of, she's showing me a lot of newspapers and kind of reading and that sort of thing. Does that make sense for her? Like crosswords mostly.
Could be, I'm not sure though.
Could be, you're not sure?
Yeah.
Because she's showing me that because she's just showing me an open newspaper, and she's just showing me open books as well.
Okay.
She's also kind of showing me that she kind of, she wasn't like a very, I don't know how to say this. She was well dressed, but she wasn't fancy.
Okay,
If that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like she liked to be put together, but she wasn't like super fancy, super bougie, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she was just kind of saying that she was comfortable being comfortable, and that was how she was, right? She was also somebody that kind of, most of the time you think of a grandmother figure, they like to cook. She said she didn't like to cook. She liked to have other people do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, because she's like, I didn't like to do it. She's like, it was better for other people to do it, and me to just relax. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. She definitely wants you to know that she loves you dearly, and she watches over you, like I said, like a spirit guide for sure. Let's see here. She's also mentioning being with another male gentleman too. I feel like she's talking about being, younger than her. But she's talking about being with another male gentleman that's younger to her that I feel like is almost connected to the opposite side of your family. And she's acknowledging that he is with her just to let you know that they're together, let you know that there's a reunion on the other side. But this feels like it's on dad's side of the family. Okay. This gentleman too feels like she would be younger in generation to him. So this could be like an uncle to you. This could be like a father type level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Would it make sense for you to have had an uncle that would have passed on your father's side?
No, I can't think of any.
Can't think of any? Okay, I could be getting the side of the family wrong. But let's see here.
Could be my dad.
Could be your dad? Okay, your dad has passed. So I'm feeling that that's kind of the level that is on. So let's see. Would it make sense for your dad to also have been a fighter? Also somebody that would have battled and kind of gotten through things in life? Yeah. He's also talking about, too, let's see here. He's fast talking. He's kind of like a high personality, kind of a high energy, if that makes sense for
Very
him.
much
Very commanding personality when I
yeah.
connect with him as well. Like when you walked into a room, you knew it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But he's just looking down on you every single day. He's watching over you too. He's saying, thank you for kind of talking with me. Thank you for still communicating with me, because you do, right? You use him a lot in kind of your daily life. So you're not just talking to him, but you use him as kind of a guide, right? So he's thanking you for that. Now, would it make sense for him to have been cremated?
No.
No?
I had to think about it.
Because he's just showing me being in multiple places. Now, do you know what he could mean by that?
No.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to see what he's showing me, because he's showing me being in multiple different places, but if that doesn't make sense, then we can just leave that. But know that he's watching over you, right? Know that he came through, and know that he loves you dearly, and he's saying, thank you for everything that you did for me. Do you know what he means by that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to leave you with that. I hope that
Beautiful.
made sense.
No, it's
and
wonderful.
just know that they came through for you with all that love.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacia.
Absolutely.
Okay, so our next volunteer, George.
You mean our next
Welcome,
victim?
George. Thank you for stepping up. And we'll leave it to you, Chris.
All right, so again, before every reading I do, I want to thank your spirit guides for connecting with mine, and thank everybody in the spirit world for the messages of love that they have for you. I'm just going to take a deep breath and we'll get started. All right. So when I first start connecting here, I feel that there's a gentleman that's stepping forward for you, and this person, he just first thing he says was friend. First thing he says is kind of like I'm friend. I'm very good friends, so like almost like best friend vibes almost. But he's talking about kind of being very close with you when you were younger. He's also talking about this feeling of drifting away and kind of not knowing what happened to him, and then finding out that he had passed later on, and kind of being like, oh man, I wish I would have kept in touch with him. I wish I would have kind of followed along. Does that make any sense?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, this would have been somebody that I feel like would have been somebody that you would know like in high school almost. You kind of were friends then, you drifted apart, and then all of a sudden you kind of found out later on, years later, that they had passed.
Again, I don't know for
Again,
sure.
okay.
I haven't found anybody that's passed recently that I know.
All right. So I'm not trying to put anybody there, but that
Okay.
might be something that comes up later on. All right. Let's see here. I could just thank him for stepping forward, and kind of we can move on. Yeah, I also feel like there's another person that's kind of another male figure, talking about best friends though, but talking about being connected by blood, talking about being connected by family, if that makes sense. Would it make sense for you to have lost a sibling?
Yes,
Yes. Would it also make sense for this person to? They're talking about being older. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yes. Okay. So know that that's his way of stepping forward for you. He's talking about being very, very close though. You guys were very close.
I was much younger, so.
You were much younger. Okay, because he's talking about there's a closeness to you in a very protective way, looking out for you in that way. But also there's a distance there. There's also, but due to circumstance, not due to anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, good.
Good. Okay. He's also kind of like he's I don't know how to say this, but he's kind of like a little full of himself, a little bravado, a little kind of like I am kind of who I am, and I know I'm very confident. Does that make sense?
That could, yes.
That could, okay. Because he's kind of like has this kind of like confidence about him. He kind of has this air of kind of like, I know who I am. I know what I need to be. I know what I need to do. He's also talking about leaving behind his children. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay. And he's actually saying, thank everybody for watching out for them. Thank everybody for taking care of them and kind of doing what I couldn't do for them, if that makes sense. Do you know what he's talking about?
I kind of have an idea, yeah.
Okay. So he's just kind of relaying that message on. He just wants you to know that. I feel like he was kind of a stubborn kind of guy. Does that make sense? Like he could be very stubborn. He could be very bullheaded. He could be very kind of like, straight and to the point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's also kind of like, he said he had a gentle side. He said he could sometimes be nice. He said he could sometimes kind of, be a nice guy when he wanted to be. Actually, he's correcting me mostly when he was drinking, if that makes sense.
I think it's the other way around.
Other way around? Okay. Right. So I could be misinterpreting what he's showing me there, but he's just kind of showing me that dynamic of like he was one person when he was drinking and he was another person when he wasn't.
Correct.
Right. Now, did he never give that up? Does that make sense? Because he's talking about never giving it up.
He never gave it up, but
Yeah.
you could see beyond that.
Yeah. Because he's talking about never giving it up. He's also talking about healing a lot on the other side. Doing a lot of things doing a lot of the healing work that he needs to kind of do, especially because there was decisions in his life that he made and kind of things that he went through that he wished he could have changed, he wished he could have done differently, he wished he could have done better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's also talking about his relationship with his dad being skewed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's talking about there being a healing there as well. All right, and there's kind of like there's a sense of forgiveness, and a sense of healing, and a sense of love, if that makes sense. And he wants you to know that. All right. Again, I know I say this a lot, but he watches over you like a spirit guide, right? He's definitely kind of saying too that if you wanted to talk to him, he's there for you. Okay. If you wanted to have that relationship with you, he can have that for you spiritually. Okay. Because it's not like you didn't have that while he was here, right? So he's saying if you wanted to have that now, you could. Now, was he military connection? Does that make sense?
He's
Navy or
military bravado.
military bravado? Ah, okay.
That's the way I guess.
That's fair enough because he's kind of showing me this kind of military kind of like vibe about him. But if it's more of the bravado about it, then that could be what he's talking about. But he's kind of showing me like Navy. I don't know if that makes sense.
Navy. He was a Navyman.
He was a Navyman? Okay, perfect. So that's validation that this is him. Okay. Let's see here. Now, would it make sense now you're a fairly tall guy, but was he shorter?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's showing me being kind of shorter than you, and he was always kind of had this like, it wasn't like little guy syndrome, but it kind of was at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, because he's kind of showing me that, but he's like, he had a good way about it. He had a good way to kind of navigate that. He kind of, he had to learn the hard way a lot of the times. So that's what he was doing, and that's how he kind of had to build himself up to be bigger than he was. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. I just want you to kind of know that he came through for you with that love and that validation. I hope that made sense, and I hope you know that he is in the spirit world watching over you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Pam, thank you for coming up, and Christopher, we'll leave it to you.
All right.
We anxiously await.
Me too. Thank you, Pam, for sitting with me.
Of course.
Before every reading I do, like I say, I want to thank your spirit guides for connecting with mine, and thank everybody in the spirit world for the messages of love that they have for you. I'm just going to take a deep breath, and then we'll get started. All right.
Sounds good.
So when I first kind of connect and I kind of shift my awareness over to the spirit world, I just keep hearing mom, mom, mom. Does it make sense for your mom to have passed?
Grandmother.
Your grandmother? She like a mother to you? Because she's kind of doesn't, there's not separating the two of being grandmother and mother. She's kind of looking over at you like that.
Everybody's mother.
Everybody's mother? Okay. Let's see here. She's also kind of, I feel like she's telling me she lived to be quite old. Does that make sense? She was very old in her age when she passed, and she feels very accomplished when she goes, if that makes sense.
103.
103. So yeah, I would say that's very accomplished. Yeah, very, very, very late in her passing. She's also talking about too is she knows that it was difficult towards the end of her life because she wasn't very cognitive towards the end of her life. Does that make sense? She's kind of showing me like 2 or 3 days before she passed, she kind of slipped away and kind
The
of
last couple of days.
last couple of days. Yeah, this one is what she's showing me. But she's also showing me like a gathering of everybody coming together. Does that make sense? And kind of being with her. She's also talking about too is there was people that showed up afterwards, after she had passed, right? So she's saying when you see them, they don't feel like it was too late. Don't feel like it was not enough, right? Because they came at the right time. She knows that they were there. She sees that they were there. She was a very sweet woman when I connect with her, but she had a mouth, if that makes sense. Like she could give it to you as best as anybody else could. Does that make sense? Because she was, yeah. And she was like, up until the day she passed, she was like this. Yeah, she was just like, you know, no mess around, kind of like no black and white area, or there was no gray area with her. It was very black and white. But she's also talking about too is she loved, I don't know how to say this. Would it make sense for her to have liked like Andy Griffith and things like that? Is that kind of show? Would it also make sense for her to say that he was very handsome? Because I feel like she was kind of saying that she would do that sort of thing and be like, oh, this person's handsome or that person's handsome, and
Well,
just
she
kind
would
of,
definitely do that.
yeah, okay.
Never talked about Andy Griffith. But
Maybe not Andy
one
Griffith,
never
but
knows.
yeah.
Not to me anyway.
But the old TV stars and things like
Yeah.
that. That's kind of what she's talking about. Is she'd be like, oh, he's just so dreamy. He's so handsome. And she would just love watching that sort of thing. And she loved watching you guys grow up, and she loved watching you guys kind of flourish and things like that. She's definitely saying how proud of you she is, especially for, did you change careers?
Well, I
That makes
started my
sense?
career late.
Started your
Yes.
career late? Okay, so she's talking about that kind of shift and that change,
Mm-hmm.
but she's very proud of you for doing that, okay? Because it was a big decision, obviously, so it was very difficult for you. But it was a smooth transition from what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It was very easy. You just kind of was like, I'm there. Does that make sense? Perfect. So she's just saying, like, that's her way of saying that she saw that and she's watching over you for that. I feel like she's been in the spirit world for a little while now. Does that make sense? And a little while means like 10 plus years or 10 years or so.
A little less than that.
A little less than that?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's showing me like a good stretch of time at least that she's been gone there. But she's also acknowledging too that she watches over your mom, okay? And she wants you to know that. She's keeping her safe. But she's also talking about a weird dynamic that they had, if that makes sense. Like they were good, they were close, but they had this odd exchange. Do you know what she's talking about? Like they had an odd way of communicating with each
I
other.
don't know if it was more. I think it was more my grandfather that was terrible, but and they were, and my mother took care of my grandmother.
Okay, all right. So
maybe there was some controversy with what they.
and I'm just feeling that there was kind of an odd exchange between them, and that's what she's talking about. But there's still a lot of love there. There's still a lot of genuine connection there, and there's a lot of kind of thanking her for the things that she did for her, because a lot of the logistical side of this she had to take care of. Does that make sense? Yeah. So she kind of had that burden placed on her. So she was kind of, but your mom didn't see it as that. She saw it as like, I'm just doing what I need to do for my mom. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So know that she's watching over you. She's saying that she kind of, like an angel, she watches over you. Now, I don't feel like no, she's correcting me. Was she a religious woman? Because I feel like she wasn't like, she didn't go to church, but she was like somebody that had a faith in what she was believing in. Does that make sense? Like she knew that there was she had a faith in God and a faith in where she was going.
Yeah.
Meh.
She had her own sense of what that was, I think.
Fair enough. But she is where she is at peace, and she is where she knew she was going to go,
Yep.
and she wants you to know that. She's also talking about too. Did she? Let's see. Would it make sense for her to have had the electric wheelchair?
She had, no, she never had one of those, but she did have multiple.
Different devices and things like that.
Devices.
Yeah, because she's
But
kind of
she
showing
didn't-
me.
She was always, she walked until the day she died.
I mean, I'm just kind of misinterpreting what she's showing me because she's showing me different things that like those reclining chairs that kind of move up and kind of
She did have those.
Okay, yeah, because that's kind of what she's showing me, where she pushed a button and all of a sudden it'd raise up just a little bit. Yeah, because she's trying to.
Multiple of those.
Okay, yeah, because she's like, those are my favorite chairs. She loved
Yeah.
those chairs, right? She was so fascinated by them because it was like new technology for her, so she loved it, right? And so she wants you to know that she's definitely kind of comfortable where she is. She is at peace, and she watches over you every single day. All right, I'll leave that love with you, and just know that she came through for you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, and we do have one final volunteer from the audience here, Mike. And I'll leave
Welcome,
you in Chris's hands.
All right, so again, before every reading I do, I want to thank your spirit guides for connecting with mine, and I want to thank everybody in the spirit world for the messages of love that they have for you. I'm going to take a deep breath and we'll get going. All right?
Sounds good.
All right. This is interesting. There's a gentleman that's kind of stepping forward, and I just heard father, but then I heard stepfather. Okay? Would it make sense for you to have had a stepfather in the spirit world?
No.
No, nothing like that? Because I almost feel like he's saying that he's like a father to you, but he's not by blood, if that makes sense. So this gentleman would have been like somebody that was like a mentor to you, somebody that you would have looked up to very greatly. Okay? I also feel like this gentleman, too, is kind of, he lived to about, he's saying about 80 or so. And I also feel like there's a cancer connection with him, if that makes sense.
Not that I recall.
Not that you recall. All right. Could I be getting the relationship wrong? Would it make sense for your father to have passed?
He did pass.
Would he pass? Was he in about his 80s when he passed?
No, he's young. He's 55.
55, okay, so I could be with somebody else. But this gentleman kind of feels like he's connected to that side of the family. He feels like he's kind of living into about his 80s. And again, I feel like he's kind of mentioning a military connection or something to that effect. Does that make any sense? For your dad's side of the family?
Yeah, most of them were in the military.
Most of them are in the military. So this gentleman, like I said, he would have lived to about 80. He was in the military. I almost feel like this could be your dad's dad, if that makes sense. Okay? So this is somebody that, too, like, I feel like he would have passed when you were younger. Okay? So you would have been a lot younger when he passed. So you would have been like, you wouldn't have known him very well, or you wouldn't have had that strong of a connection with him. Does that make sense? Okay, so know that just usually when that happens, they're just watching over you, letting you know that they're in the spirit world, letting you know that, like, that he is okay. All right, that he's watching over people that you kind of care about. Now I know that let's see. I know he's saying he's watching over another male figure that's below him. Okay, he's watching over him. He's also talking about him being kind of his passing being very fast. This younger gentleman. Does that make sense? Okay, so the younger gentleman coming through, feeling like he passed very, very quickly, very fast, very kind of not. Almost, I feel like it's suddenly.
Yeah,
like,
he had a widowmaker.
What's that?
A widowmaker.
A widowmaker. Okay, so like nobody saw this coming.
No.
Yeah, so he's just acknowledging that, and he's also kind of saying too that he took care of himself. So this wasn't something that was kind of like because of poor health or anything like that. Like he took care of himself. He did what he needed to do. Does that make sense? Okay. So he's also acknowledging too that he kind of. Now his daughter, would it make sense for him to have a daughter? So when you see her, tell him that he said hello and he loves her dearly, all right? He also loves you very much as well. There's a strong connection between you two, I feel like, that he's acknowledging. Let's see here. I got to give you what I get, but would he make impressions, like kind of like goofy impressions, like Donald Duck, kind of that sort of thing? Like,
Not that I recall.
not that you recall, okay? Because he's just kind of showing me, like I saw a picture of a duck, and I just had to like, and I don't know what that means, but I had to kind of get that across. But he's just kind of like doing impressions, maybe, or maybe I'm misinterpreting. Was he like makes sense for him to like the water, like to kind of fish, that sort of thing?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Okay. Like I said, I just saw that duck and I had to give it to you because you never know with signs and symbols what they mean. But he's kind of showing me that. He's also kind of, let's see here. I feel like he's acknowledging that he was quite young when he passed as well. Does that make sense? Like not even 40 yet. Does that make sense? Okay, because he's saying that there was a lot of life that was kind of taken from him, and he kind of wishes that he could have kind of had that time. You know, he wishes that there was more time to spend with you and more times to kind of make amends with a lot of things. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you're almost crossing over to my brother, because my brother died at 49, 48.
I could very well be. Their
He
energies
was
are very
always a
similar.
joker. Yeah, he was very, very much like my father.
Okay, was he very like jokester, kind of like
Yeah.
that sort of thing? Maybe
Yeah.
that's the impressions that I'm kind of feeling. Is like he's just trying to make you laugh. He's trying to
Right,
goof
right,
on you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the amends thing. Do you know why he's talking about that? Because he's trying to say that he's trying to mend fences and things like that. Do you know what he could be talking about?
Could be.
Okay, I almost feel like he's talking about between him and his father, if that makes sense, because it was almost like times where they would kind of go at it and kind of get involved with each other in a negative way, and then kind of be like they would separate a little bit, and then they would come back and forgive each other, and then it would be over. You know what I mean? Squash the beef real quick, that sort of thing. Let's see here. And do you know why the name of George would be important for him, or a G name? I feel like it's George, but
George. That's a ways back. It's like a great-great-grandfather.
great-great-grandfather could be his acknowledgement that they're together and that they're that he's watching over him. Okay. He's kind of he's got a good sense of humor when I connect with him, right? He's got a good smile. And I also feel like when I connect with him too, he's like the best way I could describe is like Rico Suave. Does that make sense? Like very smooth, very casual. But he's also kind of somebody that loved to he loved his toys, if that makes sense. So he loved like having boats or like four-wheelers or things like that. He just loved having toys, right? So he has that in heaven. He has that ability to be able to do that in the spirit world. And he wants you to know that. He's saying thank you for everything, right? Thank you for being there for me. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my brother. I will always be here for you. I will always love you, okay? And he wants you to know that. I'm going to leave that love with you and just know that he came through for you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
That was excellent.
Well, thank you.
Excellent.
Hope that made
I-
sense. Yeah, good.
Gotta
And
ask you,
I believe we
the,
should have about 5 more minutes.
the toy issue. So how does that translate in a non-material environment that he's got the toys that he still wants to play with?
Well, because I truly feel like wherever we go, we can manifest and create whatever is in our most like inner heart's desire. Like if I want to still play guitar when I pass, I'm still going to play guitar, and I'm still going to have the biggest amp I can find, and I'm going to crank that thing to 10, and I'm going to see how great it goes. And if your brother had those toys,
Yeah, he used to always go like monster mudding in his truck.
yeah. So
Monster trucks.
So that's exactly what he's talking about. Is like I can still do monster trucks in the spirit world. He's he's probably ripping on the engine, going nuts. But I truly feel like we manifest what is in our heart and what we really kind of truly
And
we loved
then
while we
where,
were here.
where do you think we go from there? Like, do we reach a point where we're tired? I mean, what about the reincarnation factor? Up to what point do we stop playing with our toys and decide to do the next incarnation?
That's a great question, and I think ultimately the only way we're going to know that is when we get there.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry,
It's a secret.
it's a secret. No, I mean I truly think that
Yeah.
we'll know when we get there. But I mean when I connect with people who've passed and I connect with their souls and their energy, they're very content with where they are, and I feel like that's kind of they always tell me that they're in a version of heaven, or they're in a version of what people would consider heaven.
Yeah.
So it always seems like they're in a very good place and a very positive place.
Have you ever met somebody or a spirit or being that actually felt closer towards that incarnation point? Like at the end point of their time, say in heaven?
That's a great question, and I don't think I have. I've definitely connected with souls who've they've mentioned that a piece of their soul is in a new child, or that is in or a puppy that has kind of come, that is born was another dog, if that makes sense. But I've never had them flat out say or give me the impression that they're at the end of that cycle.
Have you had any on the other end that have just gotten there and kind of don't know what's going on?
Absolutely. I've had a gentleman come through, and he had, I think it was less than 24 hours he had passed. And the first thing he said was, how do you work this damn thing? Because he's like trying to figure out mediumship, and he's trying to work, the spirit phone or whatever it may be. But that's exactly what he said, is how do you work this darn thing? And then we had a great communication, but
Wow.
it's very much like I've connected with people who've, it's been less than 24 hours since they've passed. So, yeah.
Well, generally speaking, isn't there someone there to aid them, to help them to acclimate?
I find so. Usually in readings too is when I connect with people, they tell me that loved ones will kind of greet them. You know,
Yeah.
that the first person to see them was their father, or the first person to see them was their mother, or their sister, or their brother, or their friend. So like you have a group of people who've passed before you, and all of them are going to be there waiting for you. And when it's your time, they're going to scoop you up and bring you to that heaven, that good place. In my
Yes.
opinion.
Supposedly you get to speak with elders and kind of get
Mm-hmm.
your footing, and I don't know if you keep interacting with your former family and friends or not after that point, because I do know that they do want to greet you
Mm-hmm.
when you pass over. I just don't know if there's really a break-off point. Do you think there is? Do you think they still continue to intermingle and interact?
I think they would absolutely still intermingle and react or
Yeah.
interact. I really do. I think that they kind of. There's also this thought of like soul groups,
Yes.
you know.
right.
So we come in with our soul groups, and when we pass, we are very connected with them.
Yeah.
But I feel like we continue to interact with our loved ones
Okay.
and have that soul group connection. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Wow.
we're just about out of time. We've got probably about 1 minute left. How would people get a hold of you, Chris?
The best way to get a hold of me would be Facebook. So you go to facebook.com/psychic medium Christopher. You can also find me soul searching with Christopher Brown right on Facebook as well.
Wonderful.
And you do private readings and gallery readings?
That's correct. Yep. So I do groups, I do private readings, events, anything like that.
And do you do phone readings?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yep. I just did one the other day, and it was awesome. So
Terrific. Oh, good.
And we'll have them
And-
come on over the house in the next month or so also doing readings. We're gonna do that.
that would be great.
It would be fun.
All right, thank you very much, Chris, for coming down here and sharing some time with us and doing some readings. And thank you to our volunteers from the audience,
All of our victims.
all of our victims.
I can't thank you enough for having me. This has been awesome. It's been a
We
pleasure.
really enjoyed it. Thank you, Chris. We've got to have you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Anytime.
Definitely,
Yep.
definitely.
But I still have some more questions.
Okay. Yeah. Anytime. I'd love
He
to.
always has more questions.
Perfect.
Okay, that's,
Wonderful. Thank you.
that's Edge of Reality TV, and we will talk to you all again next month.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.